Good evening, everyone. Good evening. So excited, so excited about tonight's meeting. Welcome to the Lansing School District Board of Education regular board meeting for March 13th, 2025. I just want to make note that our amazing parliamentarian gave us suggestions on our agenda. And so we've made some changes to the agenda, so you may see a difference in the flow tonight. And I just wanted to I just wanted to share that with all of our trustees this evening. So at this time, I don't need to call the meeting to order. Let us stand for our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Oh, here's my...
You do still call it to order, it's just not an item of business.
Okay, got it. See how amazing he is? He just corrected me. I still need to call this meeting to order. So at 6:01, I'm calling our meeting to order. How about that? All righty. At this time, may I have a volunteer for our mission statement reading? Yes, Trustee Danira.
Yes. Our mission is to provide a high-quality education and a culturally safe and nurturing environment that supports all students to live purposeful and fulfilling lives.
Thank you. May the clerk please call the roll.
Mrs. Boyer,
Present.
Dr. Kavanagh, Mr. Hurd,
Present.
Mr. Lopez, Mrs. Moore,
Present.
Dr. Nevarez Martinez,
Present.
Dr. Rodriguez, Mrs. Strode,
Present.
Ms. Williams. Quorum is present.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on agenda items at this time? Seeing none, let us move on to our approval of minutes. Are there any questions to the minutes are any questions or corrections to our minutes this evening? With no corrections, the minutes are approved. Now at this time, we'll move on to our presentations. We'll have a yes, sir.
The minutes are approved. Do we need to vote?
No, our parliamentarian informed me that we no longer need to vote on our minutes. We just, if there's corrections that need to be made, then we'll make note of that. But we no longer need to vote.
Is that taken from where?
It's taken from the Roberts book, Roberts Rules. I wrote this down. Yes, Roberts Rules of Order. Thank you.
How would they discover so late all this?
Pardon?
How they discover that now and we haven't done that for so many years?
Well, we have a new parliamentarian, and I believe that this is new. I'm going to give this to my parliamentarian to give us feedback on that.
No, but my point is also there are some habits and rules that this board has exercised for years, and to change them without the board approval is going against the customs of this board. And I don't say they are good or bad. Right. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there are some rules, they are not in books, but this board maybe have established by policies or by customs or by things that we do, that we don't follow 100% these particular rules.
So with that being said, Dr. Rodriguez, the approval of the minutes, if I'm not mistaken, and Parliamentarian Nowitzki, please chime in, because this is not my area of expertise. But I do want to share that with the approval of minutes, I know that we possibly did that in the past, but if I'm not mistaken, the Roberts rules have been updated, and it's not necessary for us being a small board to take on that task.
Yes, actually the edition of Roberts changed in 2020, and that new edition stated that for any assembly, the minutes are approved without any formal vote. But
But if the board, if you would like us to take a vote on the changes, I mean, we can do so. If you would prefer us to I'll be right with you, Trustee Breuer. If you would prefer the board to be in conversation about the updates, we can do that. Yeah.
Has a good dialogue.
Yes.
My point is, first of all, we didn't know anything about the changes. in the first place, and we are exercising changes that we didn't approve and impose to us, and I don't think that is the way to do it.
Thank you, and pardon me as a president of the board, because I did make this decision on my own, and please pardon me for not confirming or not communicating with the board, and I hope you accept my apologies. But if you want to have further conversation, I am so open to that, and I understand exactly what you're saying. I just thought that it made sense to follow the newly directed Robert's rules that was just changed in 2020. Trustee Boyer, I can take your question now,
Yeah,
or your feedback.
Yeah, just possibly could we just have something sent to us in writing? I think it's just probably just being blindsided by it and not knowing beforehand, which you have already apologized for. Thank you for owning that. Yeah. But yeah, if we could get that in writing to say after discussion, this is what was decided per the updated Robert rules, I think that would alleviate just some possible future tension.
Of course, and I
appreciate you.
No, of course, and I thought about that, and I should have went with my first instincts, and I should have emailed you all. So please accept my apology on this. But I do support this new structure. It's a lot cleaner, and I want to do what's best for the board. So, if anyone, is there any other comments about our approval of the minutes? Yes, I knew that our trustee Hurd was going to talk. You, you don't have anything? I thought you had something. I thought you. Oh, Rosalind, Trustee Williams. Yes.
Okay, I'm with Trustee Boyer because we're seeing a lot of changes that we're not being notified of, and it kind of puts us off in a different scenario, especially when we've had a format, and according to our rules and procedures, there has to be some type of discussion and an agreement on that. So yes, you took ownership, but there are several things that are happening that we are not having a discussion at all, and it should be that way, especially because it has been consensus and things have been happening. And I'm going to further say that since there has been changes with Robert's rules, maybe there should be a training piece that we as a board have, or some type of documentation provided to us so that we are aware going forward that this is going to be happening based on these changes according to Robert's rules, because my book, and I just bought mine, I didn't see it.
Okay. Well, thank you for your comment. And I'll be right, I'm going to go ahead and move on to Vice President Lopez right now, and then I'll come to you, Dr. Trustee Rodriguez. Vice President Lopez.
Suggestion is that we may have something in writing for our Saturday's retreat, and this way we can discuss the changes.
Yes.
And have a little more discussion on that. And I don't know if the parliamentarian needs to be there or not, but maybe just point out these are the changes in the revised Robert Rules of Order, page whatever, and then this way we can have it and have a little bit more discussion at the retreat.
I'm gonna just to comment on your feedback. Dan will not be at our meeting, but I'm going to ask Dan to give us some information if he can for the meeting, if he has time. If not, we will have something to you all before our next meeting, if that's possible. If Dan, I'll talk with Dan about that. At this time, Dr. Rodriguez, Trustee Rodriguez.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate that Trustee Lopez is asking for a time of getting together and talk on Saturday. Telling you the truth, I didn't like the format that we had before.
Tanto pedo.
This was my test.
Then when you have something new like that, it's a great opportunity. That is what I mean. Because we have been doing that for years and years and years. And I think the time changed. We are in 2025. Change have but we had to do it together.
Yes, thank you.
We had to dream together and what the future agenda should be.
Yes.
And we had to create it together.
Yes.
Until we don't do that, we will be imposed an agenda that doesn't reflect what this board wants. Then if you know in the retreat, whatever, we need to see what kind of the agenda will be the best for our students, for our community, for our staff, for ourselves. What will be the best agenda? And not just to change one thing here and repair another thing there. We are going to be okay. It's going to be a transformation. Let's go to do a transformation together for the good. And that is, if we don't do it, fine, I will survive. But doesn't mean that we are doing the job for the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Rodriguez. Are there any other questions from our board members at this time? Any other questions at this time? All righty. Moving on to presentations. We have a presentation this evening from the Department of Health and Wellness. Dr. Sue Wheeler, if you would join us. Thank you. Dr. Sue Wheeler and friends, or colleagues, I'm sorry. All righty.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy to be here this evening. I'm just going to do a quick COVID. About technology, okay. I almost had to look to Christina to come rescue me again. Oh, this is quite an evening it's shaping up to be. I'm going to provide a quick COVID update, and then from the Office of School Culture, Directors Christina Rios and Julie Ferguson are going to do a presentation about the Student Mental Health Conference and restorative practices. This has no significance other than we really love this photo. Okay, in February, COVID unfortunately is remaining active in our community. We had 32 student cases with a small cluster at Cumberland of 7 related cases. Staff cases were down to 13 total cases, as you can see, very evenly distributed across the district. February brought a dip in staff cases while student cases remained steady. And since August, we've had 125 staff cases and 256 positive student cases. As we approach spring break, we are well stocked with take-home COVID tests, and we're encouraging students and staff to take home COVID tests. So if you travel over the break before returning to school, you could do a test before coming in. And if you stay home over break, but you experience some COVID symptoms, we would encourage the same. Before returning to school, to please do the take-home test. Christina?
Hello, I'm Christina Rios, the Director of Mental Health for the school district. I'm here today to talk about our Student Mental Health Conference that we held for the first time in December. You have 2 documents kind of at the top of your area there that talk about the mental health conference, as well as the bags that you were given. Those are things that the students all received at the conference. They all got a swag bag of sorts, just as if they were going to a conference that adults would go and attend to. So we had 90 students attend the mental health conference or be nominated to attend. We had 49 actually show up that day. We were very pleased with the turnout for it being the first time. And I think overall the students and the staff that participated really felt welcomed. They enjoyed the information and thought it was a really well put together event that they hope gets promoted more surrounding the importance of students actually attending next year. Some of the information in here, this is what students got the day of the conference that they could carry around with them to all the presenters, the breakout rooms. They could take notes, have some takeaways written inside of it. Coping skills were in here for kids to use for stress, anxiety, things of that nature. And really just a little booklet for them to keep their thoughts, their feelings about the presenters and the information that they shared and what they learned. We had 2, I think, amazing keynote speakers, Brandon and Jordan. They were from the Teen Truth organization. They were very engaging with the students. They both had very different but similar kind of stories that brought them to where they are in life that I think were really pertinent and resonated with our student population. one being a student athlete, one being a kid who really struggled growing up, and his brother was sent to prison, and the struggles he felt going through his upbringing too. So I think the students all related excellently with the presenters. They also did some of the breakout sessions with the students and did activities, talked about, one of them is a therapist, so he actually did some coping skills and training with them during the breakout session, so they got some real life experience with that. Then we had our breakout rooms where we had the Be Nice program come in, and they did some more informational on what mental health is, stigma surrounding mental health, ways to break down the stigma, as well as self-care. And then Michigan State University Extension Program explored a little deeper coping strategies, went through some mindfulness activities, as well as talking about how stress affects your body, how it affects your performance. And then we also had vendor tables of sorts. We had small talk. We had the health department, both their community health center and their substance awareness prevention program. Ellie's Place, our Fort program here with the district. There was a therapy dog there, and Eat and Risa that provided information to the students that they could have conversations about the programs, what they offered, as well as additional little takeaways on their tables that they gave to the students. And the students really did seem to appreciate all of it. They had smiles, they were engaged throughout all the activities, all the breakout rooms. I personally was quite surprised with the level of participation in front of their peers that they truly engaged in and took this as a serious event for themselves. They also provided a lot of takeaways for us of ideas that they would like more information on. The second pamphlet that you got, that's called the Demographic and Survey Data Report, has all the information, the statistics about the actual conference itself. So where the students came from, what high schools. This was a high school, kind of 10th through 12th was our target demographic, but we did have some 9th graders from Lansing Tech also attend. Kind of the breakdown of ethnicity, the schools, and their grade, as well as male, female. And then just some keynotes about what each speaker spoke about, what the breakout sessions were about. And in the very back, you have kind of the takeaways. I think that some quotes that the students made themselves, we had them all do a survey at the end of the conference to give us feedback of what they would like us to improve on for future years. And really talking about the pieces they really enjoyed. And for what I took away most was the suggested topics that they wanted to learn more about. They wanted shorter sessions with more information and more hands-on experience, but managing stress, sleep, and wellness, the body image and social media. I found some of these were really interesting to hear from them versus always hearing them from adults is what's needed for the students. So overall, I think this was a amazing event for the first time, giving to our students a piece of mental health that this whole grant is intended for. So it was truly exciting to be able to do this. And before Julie, I hand this off to Julie, just wanted to kind of give some updates on the team grant. We just started year 3 in January of the 5-year grant. We will be adding 3 additional mental health clinicians that will be going out into the schools. We are also adding a clinical specialist, and really the only difference is with the specialists, we're looking for clinicians with more longevity in the field, so they are more apt to be able to deal with district level crisis. This person in particular will be working under Jennifer West, working on the behavior threat assessment, as well as the Fort program. So helping her kind of manage the threat assessments that come through the district, help our administrators process the threat assessments and go through them and make sure that the steps are being followed correctly. And really we are a federal Department of Education grant, so we will be having some increased oversight just with the changes within the federal Department of Education and Government. On purchases with speakers and with trainings, we just need prior approvals for some of those items. The other thing that is the biggest change is our change from restorative practices to what we're calling Foundations of Success, which will be more of an SEL-based program, trying to be more preventative with skills and services through the mental health lens, to be giving to the students to hopefully prevent down the road those conflicts leading to more of the restorative process. And Julie will continue to update on that.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Julie Ferguson, and I work in the Office of School Culture. I joined the Restorative Practices team in, oh, sorry.
It's on the top.
Where is it?
On the top.
Thank you for letting me know. I didn't realize that. All right, I'll start from the beginning again. My name is Julie Ferguson, and I'm part of the Office of School Culture team. I joined the working with the Restorative Practices team in January, and I get to be part of the transition from the Restorative Practices to the Foundations to Success. What I'm going to share with you first is a little overview of the Restorative Practices program that we were doing and some data as to students' contacts, what type of programs we were offering, and what schools we primarily worked with. So this first slide shows proactive versus reactive. So restorative practices is a combination of proactive, which means you are providing services to hopefully give students some skills and that they need so they don't get into any behavior issues. And then the reactive is if they have a behavior issue, we worked with them to sort of resolve that harm and to help them go back into the school or back into the class and get along with their students. If you look at our data, you see that our proactive really spiked in January. North had their turnaround happening in January, so our team was there for a solid 2 weeks, going into all the classrooms, running classroom community circles, and really trying to help North have a good start with their turnaround efforts. But overall, if you can see from the data, that most of our work has been reactive, which means something has already happened, and we're contacted by a principal or an SSS or a dean of students to come in and try to help resolve the conflict. The types of interventions that we've done this year are classroom circles, which are whole classrooms where we're teaching some type of skill to the whole classroom. Focus groups, those are small groups of students who have been referred to us, and we're working on different skills that they need, such as anger management or social skills or whatever the case may be. Peace circles, that is where we're dealing with conflict. Restorative conversations is usually a one-on-one or very, maybe one-on-two, trying to restore and resolve the conflict that had happened. And suspension reentry, we work with principals to try to make certain when students come back to school after suspension that the supports are in place and that the conflict is resolved, so they're successful when they come back to school. So if you look at our data, you could see that in January again, we had 44 classroom circles that was doing the turnaround. But you can see that as the school year progressed, we were able to provide more services to the students. So this is primarily referral based. So as the principals and the SSSs and the deans became more familiar with the program, we received more referrals. Interventions by school, you can see that North and Mount Hope have received the most interventions from us. Again, these are referral based, so these are the principals and the other school leadership who reached out and asked for us to come in and help resolve the conflict in their schools. So we're transitioning to a more of an SEL program based on the grant information. The grant no longer supports restorative practices, and so we are moving to a program we're calling Foundations for Success. And we're actually very excited about it because it's a very proactive program. So we're going to be dealing with the issues before they even happen. The program that we are putting together is a multi-tiered system of support, and that is meant to meet all of our students' needs. So whole classroom, small group, and individual still. We're going to focus on social emotional learning, and that is to support student well-being. So we're looking at the whole child. It is 100% proactive, and we will be working with students to develop their skills, inner competencies, so they can be successful for life. The program is going to initially be based on the TRAILS, which is a research-based program that was designed to support student mental health. We are going to continue to provide ongoing support for the schools, which will include professional development opportunities for staff so that they can take some of this program and put it in their schools also. The schools will receive guidance and resources on how to integrate the Foundations for Success effectively in their school. And we will hopefully have this program transition from restorative practices to the Foundations for Success by April 1st. That is our goal. This sort of gives you a visual as to what the MTSS part of the program is. So Tier 1 is research-based core instruction, and that's whole class support. So our skills coaches will be going into the classrooms and teaching whole class skills about self-awareness or self-management, self-regulation, problem solving, some conflict resolution. So that'll be whole class based on the TRAILS curriculum. The Tier 2 is a more targeted intervention, and that will be our small group intervention. And we anticipate that about 15% of the program will be small group. And then Tier 3 is more that intensive intervention, and we anticipate about 5% of the program will be the individualized intensive support, where we'll be meeting with students individually one-on-one and really working on some of those skills and competencies that they need to be successful. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. At this time, do we have any board members that may have questions? Trustee Williams.
As I was looking at it today, a couple of words, suspension reentry, that's not resonating well with me. If we can find another way, because for me, I automatically go to the outside world of prison reentry. We don't want to have that concept presented to students. So if we can look at a different terminology as far as that is concerned, anything reentry to me means somebody going, so we probably need to look at adjusting that or finding a different terminology for that. So now I'll go forward from there. The mental health conference, you said 90 people were nominated and only 45. How were these students nominated, or what information will put out to allow students to be nominated? That's my first question. I'll stop because I have a lot of questions.
Okay. We reached out to administrators to get with their teams to determine students from 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, with the exception of Lansing Tech. We used both grades because they have 9th and 10th. They picked the students that they felt were most in need of getting the information. And if there is another way to look at that for next year, we're certainly open to that. We were kind of trying to reach out to get, don't want to say quickly, but trying to figure out who are the highest need students for the information was hard because it was a limited capacity for what we could have available for the students.
Okay, I was just wondering that because some students may have even been able to be self-identified if that information was provided to them. So that was a question. The other question is that I didn't see anything regarding special pops or anything. Did we even target some of the students in special populations at all?
In regards to any particular
I mean, I know that the principals nominated them or whomever, but we do have different demographics, and so was special populations reached out, special ed or anything like that?
We did not reach out to special populations this year. We just went through the administrators in the building.
So no ELA or none of that was, okay. How were the speakers?
Yeah, they were represented there. We didn't specifically ask for a target population, though, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah. How are the speakers identified?
We did a lot of research. I researched speakers for students specifically, for kids, for youth. I personally watched several speakers and their videos, looked through their reviews, looked through other schools, what they stated about the speakers. And I think then I brought a subpopulation of possibilities to Ms. Black, my director, and we looked at them as a team as well to finalize the top 2 that we picked.
So in putting this conference together, was there any parental involvement at all?
Parental involvement? No, there was not.
Okay.
Any more questions, Trustee Williams? Yes, Trustee Strode.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I think it's very important that as a district we talk about the mental health needs of our students, and it can be a very interesting workspace to be in. So I commend you all for coming up here and sharing the information. Great, great, great presentation. As a data person, you know I was coming with some questions. You already know, Susan. For me, when we get to, I think it's page 7, I was looking at the reactive numbers, especially for February. It was like 63 here. I'm just wondering, because it doesn't show exactly the age range or grades of students. So I was curious, like off the top, what percentage of these kids, what are the age ranges for these students?
So they're primarily middle school.
Middle.
And that's because the program worked with K through 8, and it was on a referral basis. And that's for the age level that most of our referrals were for.
And I appreciated that because that was leading into one of my other questions. I know that the conference, it looked like it was absolutely amazing and very helpful from all the feedback and the pictures. But middle school is where we are really suffering. Middle school is where we are losing a lot of our teachers. They're having to parent in the classrooms due to some of the mental health challenges of the students. We have bullying. We have all those other identity things that are happening and occurring. So I appreciate the effort of it being for the older youth at this time around, right? So out of the 3 years that we are working to, we have 2 years left. So I have a great idea pitch for a suggestion. I don't know who's involved, but my thought was we look at middle years. We can break it up into a pilot program. It could be something that maybe month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month. That gives the schools an opportunity to, rally around the students. We have this great whomever you're going to have come, speak with the kids, and do a pilot of the conference at a lower or scale, but in the middle schools, and specifically the middle schools with the data that we have. And even if they wanted to pull some of the youth from the data from before with this reactive of 63 in February, that's pretty high. So then when we jump down to January, you have 44 restorative conversations. Is that still middle school too?
Primarily, yes.
Okay. So it shows me that we need to spend a little bit more time with our middle school youth to just support them, as well as our educators that are trying to teach and counsel. So that was just one of my suggestions surrounding what that would look like, and if that's a great idea, and if it's not, I'm just happy to give my voice. Go ahead.
I just want to share our clinicians that we have 6 clinicians on our team. They are all in the K through 8 buildings, with the exception of one that is at Lansing Tech. So all of the K through 8 and middle years programs, I want to let you know, do have a clinical representation in them. There is a therapist either from the health department or our team in those schools. We also did have, one of the speakers go to 2 of the middle schools and speak. One was at Sheridan and one was Mount Hope. And so he did go and talk to predominantly the middle school populations as well. So that is something that we have on our radar. In year 3, I did write in for additional motivational speakers to push into the schools versus have them come out for a conference. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, a pilot would be awesome, and I think looking at the data to reflect that when you do go for that ask would be very important. Seeing that you do have, and we know that we have clinicians in the schools for our middle years, but sometimes they don't know what's happening until there's a fire. So if we can get it addressed before we have fires and we're having 44 restorative conversations, that would be most beneficial. Also, you have some children that may not express any behaviors highly to maybe have a removal from school that might be suffering silently. And then we have the other side of it. So, just something around that line. I think it's great work. I think the conference is amazing. I can't wait to see the more things that you all would do. But just streamlining this data with the age range, as well as even if we go dive into the schools, because maybe there's a certain school that you spend more time on in year 3 or phase whatever. But if we have the data to back that up, that's going to help us get the results we need to make sure that the program is actually being effective. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Strode. Okay. Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the presentation. Dr. Wheeler, we are having a statistic about COVID. What other illness we have, and the teachers and the students, maybe there are percentages more than COVID?
Most of the other illnesses that we see between January and April are respiratory illnesses as well. So we might, and actually have seen a rise in influenza, A and B, which is all the same mitigation that we will do for COVID anyways. They're all respiratory-borne illness.
Maybe we need to include that in some way.
Yeah,
that we have a better idea of what kind of going on and the attendance of the students to the classroom and teachers and all that we know how to protect the community not only by COVID, but many other illnesses that will continue now.
Yeah, the good part about the COVID mitigation is it's the same mitigation that we do for influenza A, influenza B. So by doing the strategies for COVID, we are helping with the other, but I'm happy to bring the numbers to you.
Yeah. Oh, no, if I don't mind, if you don't mind. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. The one thing I just want to be careful of is certain diseases don't have to be tracked, and certain staff and or students don't have to report them. So it'll be a little bit more difficult to say there were 37 cases of flu. With COVID, there's a little bit more of a tracking, but if it's okay with the board, what I'd love to be able to ask Dr. Wheeler to do is give a kind of an update around like just disease in general. We probably won't be able to get the hard numbers because of the way that the data is taken. So
yeah, that's a really good point. It would be what's reported.
Right.
So.
Thank you. I think that will be that will be great. The second,
yes,
to go back a little bit, what Board Member Williams was talking about the 91 and 49. Do you have a criteria and selection? I don't think you don't have anything in writing for the teachers of how to recommend students to go.
Yes, there was guidance sent out to the administrators of, there's kind of a description of what the event was going to be. There was guidance on picking students who they felt would benefit from the information that would be presented at the conference. And we also wanted students that would be able to sit there all day because it was pretty intense. Sitting through an entire school day of mental health related information. So we wanted to make sure that they were capable and it wouldn't trigger any other behaviors from them to be intaking that information as well.
And what grades? Which grade was that, 9 to 12?
It was 10th through 12th, except for Lansing Tech, because they only have 9th and 10th graders there.
Do you have the numbers by school?
Yes, that is in this report on page 2. Right on the inside. So Sexton was 7 students that showed up. 13 were from Lansing Tech, 18 were from Everett, and 11 were from Eastern. And I believe the 3 big high schools were asked to bring 30, sorry.
Okay, do you have an idea of how you are going to follow up with them?
With the schools?
Yeah, with the students and all that, because they had the training. Now, what happened after that?
Yes, so that is a great point, and we should be following up with them prior to the end of the school year to see how did they take that information back to their school, did they share it with their peers, and see what the takeaways were for them and the staff that attended from those schools too.
Having this day with them, they can be great people to change the culture in the school and helping and follow up not only at the end of the year, but every 3 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever you decide with the group. That will be beneficial, I think. Okay, thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you. I'm working my way around. All righty. Did you have anything, Trustee Hurd? Oh, Trustee Boyer.
Thank you, everyone, Dr. Susan, Christina, and Jennifer. Julie. Is it Julie? Okay, Julie. Thank you. I really appreciate the presentation. I do want to make note, I appreciate the report. It was good to read through as you were going through it. I have several questions. So it says the conference prioritized student mental health, centering on themes such as student voice, self-belief, authenticity, resiliency, mindfulness, and access to school and community mental health resources. I am a little concerned. I do not see Capital Area or the Lansing Learning Hub, knowing that they may have a higher population of students that would have benefited from this. What was the reasoning, or was there reasoning, or were they invited, were they not invited? Can you?
We did not invite them this year. We truly were trying to get a conference put in place and work with the students in the main high schools for the first year. Next year, we do plan to expand that and access more students. This was truly a pilot, trying to see how it would roll out, how it would go, how it would be received by students and the schools as well.
Okay.
But I do agree with your statement, yes.
Yeah, I mean, yes, because when you're talking about the resiliency and mindfulness, if you really want to test the measure of something, you take maybe some of those difficult testers to see, does it really work? Is this something that we can really use, and is it really helpful, especially for a population of students who may need more talks about resiliency and resources to mental health, anger management, and things like that. So I appreciate that you all are addressing that in the future. A little disappointed that we didn't choose to do that this year, to really try to pilot a program. My next question is just in regard to, you said on the proactive and reactive, if you have spent any time inside of a classroom, you know that between January and March, it starts to get really wild. My time in the classroom, I learned the very first year, if you do not get a hold and be proactive, February, March, and April are going to be really, really tough. And so knowing that, I'm actually a little shocked at the reactive high numbers for February. That almost implies maybe we were proactive in January, but then once students re-entered, we might have done a hands-off. We met with you. So can you talk about how you may have done any follow-up after restoring students?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So the program, the Restorative Justice Program, was developed to be more of a reactive program rather than proactive. And that's just the way the program was developed. I recognize that we need the proactive part. And so we did, so if you look at our numbers in August, October, November, and December, you see that actually the proactive part, the classroom circles, were pretty low. And so I started with the program in January, so we made a solid effort to make certain that we were doing more proactive, because I was a classroom teacher. I know how that is. I was a principal. I know how that is. So I understand the behaviors and the importance of addressing these things before they happen. And so that's part of why I'm really excited that we're transitioning to the Foundations for Success, because that is all proactive. And so we're going to be able to go into classrooms and really start laying the foundation and teaching the different competencies and the skills that the kids need. And they'll be able to take those skills, and the next time there's a conflict out in the playground or whatever, hopefully they'll be able to take some of those skills that we're teaching them as a classroom or in the small groups or even individually, and use those skills to to make better choices. So they're not throwing punches, or they're not, doing something that would require us to be reactive. So the idea is, and we're starting this program late in the year, but I'm really excited because next year we'll be able to start at the very beginning and hopefully help establish a lot of that within the schools. And so it is exciting.
Okay, so the next question, I guess it will be twofold, is because we are starting so late in the year, I am assuming you will be trying to work with teachers on this. And have we taken into consideration, especially going into a testing season that can be stressful, now you're also going to be introducing something else? That would be one. But then also, Foundations for Success, how do they define success for the student? And then how did we pick this program?
So Foundations for Success isn't necessarily, it's because we're giving them the competencies and the skills so they can be successful in life. So it's not really, we don't really have a bar and, you've reached this bar and now you're successful. What we'll really need to start doing is tracking our data and looking to see the classes that we provide the instruction to. Is there a decrease in interventions that are required? Is there a decrease in discipline that is required? Are we seeing the differences for the kids who attend the small groups? We need to track those kids and see, is the program making a difference? So part of putting the program together, Foundations for Success, is there has to be an evaluation tool so that we can evaluate the success of the program itself, and then we'll have to make tweaks, based on that, the data that we get back from the evaluation of the program. As far as the teachers, the idea is that right now our team is going to go in and we're going to lead the classroom instruction, and hopefully we'll be modeling for the teachers. We are using trails, and that is something that the district has already had in place on some level for several years. So the trails program isn't new to a lot of Lansing staff. We recently did a survey, and we found out that a lot of our staff in schools are not providing SEL in the schools, and so we are finding that this is a great need. So we anticipate that as the program, starts this year, that it will grow next year, and we will really see the impact next year.
Okay.
I will say, too, this isn't a one and done. We're not pushing in teaching a skill to a class and then leaving forever.
Right.
This will be an ongoing, I think, education for students, especially the younger, is going to be a prime population too. This is a long-term project because the more that they can learn over time, they're building on their skills, they're building on their self-awareness, understanding feelings, what they're actually feeling versus being told what they're feeling. So this is really a long-term kind of life lesson of how do we help our students understand first what's going on with them, second, how to deal with what's going on with them, and how to manage and have coping skills. So by the time they get to middle years, high school, they have more self-regulation, have more ability to kind of step back and use the skills that they are learning throughout their time here at the school district.
Okay, then I'm going to go back to my other question is, then how are we going to define success? I'm not asking for a bar, but we should be able to say, like any standard that we have for Common Core, after completing this program or after this section, the student will be able to. So how are those things fleshed out? And if you don't have them right now, that's fine. But okay. But so then I'm going to strongly circle back on and encourage, we have to define that, because it's great to say words, but if students cannot see, I will be able to regulate my emotions. I will be able to express with clear thought and vocabulary how I'm feeling, then there's no measure for us to be able to say this program is really working.
So actually, the Trails curriculum they do have objectives and so forth, so the students know what their objective is, and the Trails program actually has, the curriculum is divided up into different grade level bands, and each grade level bands has 5 units, and there's about a total of 25 lessons in each of those units. So, for each grade band, there's a total of 25 lessons divided up into 5 units. And so it is an ongoing program. It's not something that we'd come to your classroom and do one day and then we wouldn't come back. It's something that we would be working with the students to go through the program to really build those skills with them. Yep.
Righty, I'm circling back to Dr. Navarez-Martinez.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. I'll start with my first question. I saw that all the different schools that had interventions, and I saw that Dwight Rich didn't have any. How do we do outreach to the schools to let them know that this is something they could use?
So again, this was the restorative practices program that we were moving away from. It was referral based.
Okay.
So all the information was sent out to the schools. There was actually a form that the referrer would fill out and say, you know, these students, this incident happened, we'd like you to come in and work a restorative program with these students. So those are the schools that reached out to us. We also look at the discipline data, and like 3 of those schools that are pretty high for our services are the ones that have more discipline issues than other schools.
Okay, all right. So I also have some questions about the new program. For the Tier 1 instruction, which is more inclusive, are all K-8s getting the same instruction throughout the year, like the same, whatever workshops they are or whatever? How are we picking if they aren't?
So the schools that will participate in the program, and those have not yet been determined, they will all have the Trails program. That's the foundation. So those 5 units and 25 lessons is the foundation of the program, so that's that Tier 1 classroom.
Okay, and for the Tier 2 and 3, which are more targeted, how will students be like identified for those? I ask because I'm all for like preventative and but as a student who myself was tracked into like at risk or you know, I might get pregnant, so I need to do these programs, and it's really hard not to internalize those things. How is it that we're going to pick the students that need these things without like imposing our our views of them on them that may not be accurate?
Right. So,
I was just going to say, I think this has been a recent development of transitioning into this program. Full transparency, we do not have every detail worked out. We're still working on all of those details. Does some of this need to rely on school referrals? To some extent, yes. I'd be all about if students wanted to self-refer. I mean, looking at creative ways to really bring intervention into the buildings. Some of this we've talked about of how are our staff walking through the buildings, observing students themselves, having conversations, talking about what we do, how we do it. So I think part of it is just educating our students too, so they understand what we're doing versus just, oh, I got referred to you, or I was told to talk to you. So I think some of it is a lot of outreach, a lot of pushing in, educating the students, the teachers, the staff, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate for referring. And really the whole purpose of this program is through a mental health lens. So it is how are we looking at our students still in a sensitive manner and helping to reach out to them and push in just like the clinicians are. It's not a punitive program at all, and it is truly about how can we help give you something that might help you down the road in the immediate moment or in your future that you can't see yet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Vice President Lopez, you had a question.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And thank you for defining the restorative and foundation from proactive to reactive. We do have, I believe, a lot of staff who was trained in restorative justice. That's what we're talking about, right? Restorative justice, okay. Will they be trained in this other program, foundation?
I would love for all the school staff to have a good foundation in social emotional learning. I think it's a true benefit to our students if they can, again, like I said earlier, understand themselves, how they fit in the world, how to regulate, because no one can come into school and learn algebra or any subject if they just woke up, didn't eat breakfast, didn't have a way to get to school, or they were sleeping on someone's couch or whatever. They're just not going to come in and learn. So it's helping them to have some skills to find their voices, to find their ability to advocate for themselves, to just understand themselves better. So I think the more we can give to staff, yes, it's a much needed skill that I think would also help classroom management. The way adults internalize student behavior as well is, I think, what also contributes to some classroom mismanagement. If I'm reactive to a student, I'm not demonstrating those skills either. So I think the more we can give to teachers, to the staff in the buildings, will help them also regulate themselves while teaching, and then in turn be able to role model and teach those skills themselves.
So this is in a PD format for them?
It would have to be. They all also have access to the Trails curriculum if their administrator of their building signed up for Trails. So all the SEL curriculum is available, and schools should have a format that they're following. And some schools use different SEL curriculum, but what we realized is that there isn't any consistency throughout each school and how many teachers are utilizing it. That's what our survey shared with us, is that even the administrators weren't completely aware of who was trained in what or using what program.
One last question. This is for Dr. Wheeler. So going back to maybe what Dr. Rodriguez started to talk about, we know that there's an issue with measles, not in Michigan, I hope, but elsewhere. My question to you is, are we doing any kind of preparedness in case something happens with measles in one of our schools?
It is true that measles is not here yet, and we hope it will not be, and we don't want anyone to bring it back over spring break, okay? That's an important public announcement there. But seriously, we do have a strong nurse team that we can quickly partner with the Ingham County Health Department should the need arise. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's important because, so let me ask you another question. Do we know that all our students are or have their immunizations up to date? And do we know who students that don't have that? I mean, don't give me names and numbers. I just want to know that we know.
Yes.
And so if we know that a child is not immunized, are we looking at that child in a different way, or at least be aware that they, I guess, are more susceptible to measles or any other disease?
Yes. And that's the key point. They are definitely more susceptible. If you are immunized for measles, you're about 95% safe from getting measles should you come in contact with it. We do know what the immunization status is of our children. When you enroll in school, you provide your immunization records, and then periodically the immunization status is updated. We take samples of grades and children and look at what those are. So we could quickly, in the event that we had a measles case here, we could quickly know who in the school, in the classroom, is vaccinated and who is not, so we could address that.
Well, I just bring that so that we know that we're prepared and ready to go into action, and the public knows that that's in our mind, and to keep the children safe and adults.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Lopez. Trustee Hurd.
Thank you. I have a few questions myself, actually. So I can understand as we go on as a district adopting or transitioning from one conceptual framework to another as it fits the students of the day. I struggle with this change. Honestly, I was fine with it until you said that the district has been using trails for several years. Can you explain to me, I'm very new, so can you educate me? Does it cost money to use this framework? It's free? Okay. My second question is, my second question is this a district level framework that everyone has been instructed to use, or is it a strong suggestion that they use it? And why should they start using it now if it is not mandated from the top for them to do it? The reason why I ask, and I guess I don't know what several years means. I was a teacher in the district several years ago and can remember RJ and SEL, these buzzwords that we're using now, and going through extensive training at the time about how to integrate that into the classroom. Here we are, a few years later, and you're saying, we want to do something that buzzword proactive, buzzword teaching skills, buzzword constructive life lessons and all these things. But the framework that we're already using, Madam President, already boasts to do that. And we've already been saying that we've been teaching these things. I subbed in the classroom not too long ago under this administration, and there were SEL lessons at the beginning of every lesson where we were mandated to do SEL time for whatever, the reason was at the time. Now, of course, I was an outside person subbing in the district, but it boasts to do the same thing. And so as I'm looking at this, and it has so many of the same tenets, can you help the people at home understand what is the transition? We say we've already been doing that. And then also, of the tenets that trails, because I don't know the framework, and I wish I would have been able to do a little bit more on this, so please educate me. What tenets are we saying that we're hoping students will get? And I know we ask that in one way when we talk about goal setting by the end here, but I know that there are certain things in your research that you see with looking at the data more than I have. These are really things that our students need. I just wonder about adding new things just because. I'm not being accusatory to say just because. But it seems to me if we're going to be using the same tactics with the same kids, with the same level or lack of level of buy-in or shared commitment from administrators by your own admission, you're saying administrators in this district don't know what's going on. If they do know what's going on, they don't know what's happening at the building level with who got trained in their school communities, and don't know how to implement and how to follow up.
Trustee Hurd, I was going to ask where your question to, because you referred to me and then you referred to them. Is your question for them?
No, my question was for you. You too, but my question is if this is a district level thing, how are we saying that our administrators in the school communities don't know how to implement this and don't know which faculty under their watch are implementing these things? There seems to be a disconnect, and I wondered if someone could educate me to fill it in.
So you want clarification?
Yes, please.
All right.
And maybe the superintendent wants to answer himself. I don't know.
I'm going to direct this to our
You guys can answer first, and then I'll happily support.
From my understanding, administrators have been allowed to pick an SEL curriculum to use in their building. Now, do staff transition through different schools at times? Yes. So is there 100% fidelity? I can't answer that question. From what our survey pointed out was there was a need for additional SEL education. and resources to students. There, I think, to say one curriculum throughout the district, as a mental health professional, I would say I would strongly recommend that, because the same language, the same skills, the same verbiage is important for students who go from school to school, teachers who transition schools and buildings. That would be a suggestion. I think the concern was, how do we give students continued skills that also the mental health clinicians are pushing into the buildings and taking time to teach students, and getting referrals for, how does a kid do deep breathing? Is that what we want our clinicians being utilized for, or is that something that another staff could be working one-on-one or push into a classroom and teach students how to manage stress, manage strong emotions? I don't know if that answers the question or not.
I think maybe it'd be helpful to just step back to talk about what we're actually talking about. There's a grant. This district got a grant. The district is trying to take the grant, which they applied for and got, which was about ways to bring support services to children. And the change between RJ to this, or restorative practices to the Foundations of Success, is something that the federal government and the grant has kind of forced upon us. And so what the team is really talking about is saying, we very much care about LCL, we very much care about mental health, and we think that these are good practices that we should bring to children. This isn't a mandated anything. This is, the team went out, got a great grant from the federal government to try to support children. They were doing it in a, let's say, the way they wrote the grant originally was a little bit more reactive. This, as you can tell, and it makes some sense, right, is you want to empower your principals to say, hey, schools, who needs help? Oh, little Johnny does. Okay, you go. But what we're finding, of course, is that sometimes it's a little late if the principal is saying, hey, little Johnny got into his third fight. You want to make sure that you're getting there beforehand. So I just want to make sure that, because I really appreciate the question, which is, hey, are we just retreading the old stuff that we've been talking about 5 years ago? And that's not it in terms of the structure. I think the issue is that we've never said, we as a district are mandating this thing for this thing, right? Now, I would certainly love the board to have a wonderful and robust conversation of, do we think that that's something that we want to make a kind of Lansing school district thing? That'd be awesome. But right now, what the three folks that are presenting are talking about the team's grant, which was this multi-year, multi-million-dollar project about how can we start to bring more mental health services to the children. So I totally hear you, because what I would hate the outcome to be is, oh, we're just retreading the old stuff, right? And that's kind of how it sounded, so I totally hear where you're coming from. What's really happening here is they're trying a lot of new things, having this conference. They're trying to do more proactive things. And so I think because it's new, they're just kind of getting this off the ground, you're going to see a little bit of that. I mean, my hope is to invite them back at the end of the year after they've done the transition to the Foundations kind of curriculum, or Foundation, I guess, ideology, so that would really show if we're doing it or not. Because certainly the other concern, I mean, if we're really trying to get to our most at-risk kids, LLH and, CAKE are probably ones that we should focus on too. So yeah, so I just want to make sure that because it's a lot of stuff here, and so I know it could sound a little like disjointed, but really what I appreciate about the presentation is that for the first time we're actually even sharing what we're doing, right? Is that we got this grant, we got to get it off the ground. Now we're sharing the students that are being part of it. But I will say the concern has always been, and this is just education, so much is referral, right? You say to a school, hey, do you want it? So when it was pointed out, like Dwight Rich has 0, well, we're not going to force the principal to refer the kids, but what we can say by sharing this data is talk to that principal and say, hey, maybe you want to, try it, and talk to your friends at Mount Hope and North. They seem to like it. So I'm happy to continue to talk about it, but I really appreciate your asking that because I don't want it to seem like there's that issue.
Thank you. And Madam President,
Hurd, yes.
I wanted to apologize if I missed the part of the presentation that said that this came from $1 million grant, and I may have missed that. And so thank you, Mr. Superintendent, because I think maybe I asked my question wrong. When I said, does it cost money, I probably should have said, is there money involved in this? Why are we doing this? And so that, takes my other 10 questions away. And I think it might be helpful to start with saying, hey, we got this amazing grant. Yay, us. So we are, making a pivot. So thank you again.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Trustee Hurd, for that clarification about the money. And I'm going to, Superintendent Schuldiner, Trustee Strode has a question for you.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yes, so thank you for sharing the information surrounding now we're sharing what we're doing. We mentioned again that this is a grant. We mentioned again that we're in year 3 out of the 5, so we have 2 years left, and we know that with any project, it's going to take some time to see some groundwork being built. So we just I want all of our colleagues to hear that part. I think this was a great presentation, but I did have a question in regards to you. When we're talking about the presentation of sharing what we're doing, I'm guessing, Madam President or Superintendent, who makes the decision and when the presentation comes to our table?
Sure.
I just want to be clear about the process of what that looks like. Number one, we're sharing what we're doing and what's going on, which is great, but I feel like sometimes, I'm just being completely honest and transparent, there's a little bit of gap in misinformation. One, we didn't know that this was a grant. 2, there's some data here, but it doesn't tell me the age grade of the data. It doesn't tell me what the practices were, how it was tested, how it was thought out. So I just want to know, one, who looks at the presentation before it comes to our chair, and are you a part of that decision making?
Sure. So a couple of things. I really very much appreciate it. I would just point out to page 3, the first slide when they were sharing is about the team's grant. So if that was not made clear, that's totally on the presentation, but I just want to make sure of that. But the bigger...
It doesn't say grant here, though.
Yeah, I mean, no.
It just says team wellness.
Yeah. No, and I will have definitely take that it should have said grant. That's all.
Or maybe with a description.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Where this came from and just is 3 years ago, the board had asked us to do monthly updates on COVID, on health.
Yeah.
So that was a request. Then 2 years later, the request from the board was to not just give health updates, but to give mental health updates. So again, the board asked for us to do we had to do the health updates, but then the board said, we want more than just health updates, we want mental health updates. So starting, I want to say last year, the team under Cordelia and Sue started to add mental health updates. So that is all board directed. You said we were going to do it once a month, which we did, and then you wanted us to add the health and wellness, including mental health, which we did. So it's always the first meeting of the month. They always do the presentation, and we've been very willing. Anything you've asked, we'll certainly add it. And so again, it used to be just COVID numbers. It used to be just health numbers. Now we've included the mental health stuff, and so that's why today they're adding not just the COVID numbers, but the updates on what we're doing for mental health. If the board would like to request something else or something different, just let us know. But this was our response to the board. So it's always the first meeting of the month, and it's always an update about health and then mental health.
So I'm just making sure I'm hearing correctly. This was an adopted practice from the previous full board of having a top of the meeting meeting with wellness, adding the mental health piece, which is great. I'm just asking about who's evaluating the presentation before it comes to our chair. There seems to be some pieces missing. So I don't know if there's a different process, but I just want to uplift that. And then also for my board colleagues, I greatly appreciate the dialogue and conversation that we're having today. I want us to be mindful of what our mission and values are collectively as a board. I know that's just giving that information up front here. It seems too that we're asking the same questions in a different way. So I want to respect their time as well. I just want to lift that to my colleagues.
So
Thank you.
one concern I just want to point out with the question is when you say there's data missing. So I think I'd like to, again, I serve at the pleasure of the board. They serve, I guess, at my pleasure. But well, they're actually unionized, so it's a little different. But, so I would just really request, and maybe this is a conversation we can have on Saturday, when you say there's things that the board would like that's missing, I'd just like to know that.
It's not necessarily data missing. There's just information pieces when you're doing a presentation that is left out. So if there's a grant piece or you're coming about a program and we're having new people to the table, just an explanation of what that is.
Sure.
I'm not saying that nobody did anything wrong. You guys did an amazing job. I just would like to see a little bit more detail surrounding the presentation.
Sure.
Thank you.
And one thing I might suggest, and I know it was brought up previously, which I totally agree with, is maybe we as a unit, superintendent plus the board, can come up with a cadence around giving you the presentation maybe like a week early, and then if there's kind of concerns or whatever, we could try to address that before that. And again, I'm happy to try to preempt whatever you want because I love you guys, but I can only do what I'm asked. And so, typically the way that it had worked before was that they would do a presentation, we'd ask questions, and we do it. But I think that it would be awesome is if we just set a cadence that says if the presentation is on this Thursday, you would have it in your hands by the Friday before or whatever, and then we'll add whatever you want.
And I thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
I appreciate all the questions. I just want to reiterate, a few board meetings ago, I believe Trustee Boyer and Trustee Hurd both mentioned that in regards to previous presentations getting to us like a week before. So if that's something we're going to yield to or vote to, I'll yield that to Madam President.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Superintendent.
Yeah, my pleasure, and I love that we're having this conversation, and I would just ask that maybe on Saturday we could make let's come to a conclusion that that's the ask, because I love you all and will listen to you, but I need the direction. So if that makes sense, that's super easy for us to do.
We'll develop a best practice on Saturday at our retreat. Are there any more questions? Oh, Trustee Lopez. Trustee Rodriguez, please.
Thank you, Madam President.
Yes.
I think the superintendent was very clear what else we can do.
Yes.
And I don't want to go bad. Our students have had emotions all the time. All type of emotions. And we don't have to wait until 10, 11, and 12th grade to find that our student has to learn about their emotions. We used to have a program called Michigan Model. Mm-hmm. And we went to kindergarten and before teaching this kind of programs. Disappear, but the emotion of the student did disappear. Then how we can implement a program from kindergarten to 12th grade that teach social, emotional learning, behavior, etc., etc. Then, the superintendent mentioned what else we can do. Board members, we have money. If we don't have money, we have to find it. But that is one of the more important learnings that our students and our families can have. Then, I don't know if it's Saturday, but as soon as possible, we have to see how we can go to kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and start the program.
Yeah. Thank you, Trustee Rodriguez. Vice President Lopez.
Yeah, one last question, really simple question.
You sure?
It's very simple. I'll tell you, I bet you. So we have 2 more years of this grant, right? Yeah. My question is, what are we going to do to embed this program in the district? After the grant, you're not sure you're going to get another grant. But do we have a plan to institutionalize it? Because I hope after the 5th year, it's a very good program, right? So that is my ask. Do we have plans to continue the services that this grant has allowed us to surface and continue it for our children as we
I mean,
move on.
it's absolutely our hope. I mean, the great thing about training is that if we spread the training around throughout the schools, that hopefully they're going to be there. Of course, I have to be transparent. You know, we don't know what the federal government's going to do tomorrow, let alone in 2.5 years. We also really don't know where the focus is going to be from the state. One of the earlier things that we've gotten and we've done is we have medical assistants at our schools, and we have a lot of other mental health services. Those are being funded by state grants as well as federal grants. It's our hope. We love this stuff. We think it's super important. It's our hope to continue it. You know, ask me in 1.5 years when we see that budget. You know, we're going to do our best to protect it as much as we can. But, you know, teacher in the classroom, principal, and then, you know, you move down from there. But it is our intent, absolutely, to continue this as much as we can, because we think it's good.
Well, I guess it's about training, right?
Yeah.
And if we train our teachers,
Sure.
shouldn't use train, I guess,
No,
give them
it's the-
professional
right.
development in this area, that the program can live,
Yeah.
even without additional funds.
Yeah.
But we have to, I guess, at a certain point in time, say that it must be.
Mm-hmm.
Not that if the principal wants it or the school wants it.
Yeah.
I guess we have to make a choice. And at that point in time,
Mhm.
you know, money or no money,
Mhm.
but if we take advantage of the training right now,
Yeah.
that it can continue on.
Yeah, and I definitely want the board to think of this kind of in 2 buckets. Bucket number 1 is the training, right, or the support, or the knowledge base. And then bucket number 2 are the people. So, you know, if you look on page 6 of the slide deck where it says Teams Grant Update, one of the things is we were able to add 3 mental health clinicians. Will we be able to continue that after the grant? I can't promise that. But what I can promise is that hopefully everybody who's gone through the training will be able to utilize the training. So there's 2 buckets, right? We absolutely want people to start to learn these practices, and we also have been really, I wouldn't say lucky, we've been active in receiving money so that we can fund the mental health folks, the clinicians, the whatever. I don't know what's going to happen in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years for that, but just know that we're doing our best to thoughtfully use our budget so that we do what we think is the most important. And certainly, I always love to hear from the board. And, you know, if hopefully it never happens, but if it gets to a point where the budget is tight and we have to make a decision between one program or another, certainly want to hear, because that should be a collective decision. So, thank you.
Information. Is this the right time to make a comment on the discussion, or should I wait to the end for comments from the board?
To make a comment on this discussion?
Yes, please.
No, this is the time.
This is the proper time.
Yes.
I just want to point out, Madam President, that I appreciate the superintendent and his team's commitment for clarity. Is my mic on? I'll speak louder. I just don't want to seem shouty. I appreciate the superintendent and his team's commitment to more clarity in presentations. Not that this one was not great, Dr. Wheeler and team, but also getting it to us earlier if that's what we come up with at our retreat. I just wanted to say, because it came up in the discussion, that oftentimes different people make up boards like this with different intersections and different levels of understanding. And if I feel there is no clarity and one has to ask questions in the way that they know how, with the understanding that they have, I want to reject that would be a waste of anybody's time, or that it shows us not as a united front. If I have a question, and it very well may be the same question, President Moore, that you may have just asked, and I ask it a different way because I have a different understanding of what I heard, does not imply unpreparedness, and it also does not imply that I am untoward the discussion of the board at large. And this is how I was made to feel by this. And so since it came up in the discussion, I want to say in the discussion, I think all of us as duly elected members of this board have a right to ask questions as we need to be able to represent the people who elected us. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you so much for that. And I totally understand we all comprehend or take in things a little differently. Thank you. I want to say if there's no more questions from the board, I want to thank you all for your presentation this evening.
Thank you.
And for clarification. Great work. Great work. All righty. So moving on to reports, can we have, I'm sorry, Madam Secretary, report from our secretary at this time. Yes.
Thank you, Madam President. So I went to the ISOA meeting on March 5th, which is the Ingham School Officers Association Executive Board meeting. We heard a presentation about superintendent evaluation changes. We also talked about some of the federal education issues going on and the ISD election, and we got an update from the superintendent of the Waverly Community Schools, and we talked about doing an annual review of bylaws. We will not have an April meeting, and then we will have a meeting on May 7th.
Thank you so much, Madam Secretary, for your report. Next, we have our committee report from our Finance Committee, and Vice President Lopez will be reporting on behalf of Trustee Kavanaugh, who is absent, as you can see tonight, and I am aware of her absence.
Okay. Thank you, Madam President. Okay, this is the detailed Treasurer's report for the period of December 1st, 2024 through January 31st, 2025. And it is attached in this evening's agenda, the full report. Following are the highlights. The beginning cash and investment balance was $180,424,505. Receipts total $38,463,863, while disbursements equaled $54,835,290. Net interest fund transfers total $373,590 in interest from fund investments to the student and bond funds, as well as journal entries to remove the due to date from in all funds. The monthly transfer to the general fund for the bond expense was $3,419,014. The Indian General Fund cash and investment balance on January 31st, 2025 was $78,660,434. The general fund cash and investment balance is $40,460,248, greater as compared to the same time last year. Donations received during the month of December 2024 through January 25th, January 2025 totaled 2,562. Donors were Daniel Laird, donation $1,000. Heartland School Solutions, Everett donations $5. The Blackbud and Jackson National donation to LSD $100. Again, the Blackbud and Accenture donation to LSD $30. Capital Air United Way to RIF $219.24. The Blackbud and Eco Lab donation to LSD $10. Dean Transportation donated $650. Blackbud and Accenture to LSD $30. Again, Blackbud and General Motors $56. Comerica Bank donation to Carl McLean Memorial Fund $1.50. The Blackbud and Ecolab $10. The Blackbud and Jackson National $25. Michigan State University donation to the D. Rich Theater $250. Alexander Folsey, excuse me there, donation to Fort Program $50. And again, Blackbud and Nielsen Foundation Inc. $25.25. That's for a total of $2,161.99. Madam President, this concludes the December 2024 to January 25th Treasurer's Report.
All righty, thank you so much. Oh, I have a question from Trustee Williams. Trustee Williams.
I'm just a little concerned because the donations that he read are not showing up on our narrative. It's showing us a donation of $2,114.24 for December. Now, some of the donations that he did mention were on the January report, so were they combined?
Yes, they're combined. I think you can find both reports. You have-
Yeah, but when he proceeded, he said he was just doing the December, so that's why I'm seeking point of clarification.
Oh, did you have a combined report? You had.
But this is supposed to be combined.
Yeah, it was combined. The narrative that he received was for December and January.
Okay.
Because, yeah.
So that's what I'm saying, point of clarification, because we were all expecting him to do December, then go back and do January, because that's how it's presented to us.
No, this is a combined report.
Okay.
It was prepared.
Combined report. Sorry about the confusion, you all. Pardon the confusion. All righty. Is there any other, well, okay, no questions. All righty, moving,
Move to accept the report.
Second.
It's been moved by Vice President and second by Trustee Navarez Martinez. All righty. Any discussion? Well, we kind of had a discussion already. Yes.
I just have
Trustee
a
Boyer.
few questions in regard to both December and January reports. I appreciate the shortened report, and then we have the full report. And since I am not on that committee, that's why I'm asking this question. So you have a significant number in December and January of the full Treasury report, where it talks about ACH vouchers and check register. And so can you speak to, especially the amount of, it seems, if I'm reading this correctly, these are checks being written to individuals? And so is this like a reimbursement, or, so can you just
I'm
clarify that for me?
I'm going to pass this on to Superintendent, who will then pass it on to somebody else.
I'm
for
certainly
that
happy to answer.
information.
I just want to make sure I know which of the documents you're talking
So
about.
I'm talking about the December full Treasury report.
Awesome.
And it would be on page 59 when you go to December 2024, check register. The previous page would be all of your ACH vouchers for December. So page between.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's extended. So just.
No, absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn it over to Kim first, and then I'll clarify anything.
Hi, Kim. Okay.
So each month, we report all of the checks written either by ACH or paper check. It includes payroll checks, it includes accounts payable checks. So yes, there could be some reimbursements in there. There's also probably payments to vendors for services rendered, capital projects, food service, everything that we issue a payment for during the month is reported. There's also a shortened list in there that would say December 2024 listing of expenditures, and it gives you a snapshot, because you're right, there are pages and pages of data.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Kim. That was my only question.
And if I may, I really appreciate that you're asking that question, because the more the board kind of understands this, I appreciate that this can be gobbledygook. So, please ask that stuff. No, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. I just want to make sure, as people that were duly elected, that we're not just, that they know that we're looking at these numbers, these monthly reports, because this is money.
Absolutely.
Coming from the district. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate you, Kim.
That's why we have people in position to guide us through. I would just like to.
You want me to restate?
Yes, I was going to do that for you.
No, I'll restate it.
Okay.
I made a motion to accept the report, but it needs to have a little more meat in it. So I will restate the motion. This is that I move that the Board of Education receive the Treasurer's report for December 2024 and January 2025, and approve expenditures as presented.
Well, we don't need to have another second, because we had a first second, and that was the trust. For the new reading? I'm looking at Dan. Dan's like,
Yeah, that's it.
but we should have. Okay. All righty. Parliamentarian, give me a thumbs up. Or our parliamentarian is going to inform us.
In a small board, a second is not needed for any motion.
All right. Yeah, we'll have we'll have conversation. All righty. But yeah. At this time, we're gonna move on to our take a vote. My goodness. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Wonderful. You all. Second, we have our report from our policy committee. Trustee Navarez Martinez, would you like?
Yes, of course. So the policy committee met on the 5th here in this room. And we are presenting some policies that we've reviewed twice as a committee, and we are presenting for a first reading for everybody. Many of the policies that we are presenting with changes, revisions are because policy has changed and we have to update ours to match. And so we have quite a few, so I'll go ahead and read them off and give a brief summary of what they are. So we have policy 6320, which is on purchasing, and this one we added language to reflect this policy conforms with administrative guidelines AG 6320. We have POs 0100, 7455, or 100 is definition, 7455 accounting systems for capital assets, and 8500 food services. The changes here reference the chief financial officer, which we have changed to assistant superintendent of finance and budget, and so we are changing the language to be accurate there. We also have some revisions from Neola. These are our fall updates, and these are PO 3120.08, employment of personnel for co-curricular, extracurricular activities. So starting in 25-26 school year, mandates valid certification in cardiopulmonary resuscitation and use of AED, automated external defibrillator, for all high school athletic coaches. PO 5340, student accidents, starting in 25-26 school year, mandates the development of a cardiac response plan. PO 6110, grant funds, adds designee next to superintendent on section A, and selects option B for $750,000 under subtitle grant proposal internal interview. And PO 6114, cost principle, spending federal funds, added new language to conform with legislative updates, selected items of cost, increased from $5,000 to $10,000. PO 7540.09, artificial intelligence, AI, is a new policy, since it's a new thing that just has come up. The following policies have added language to conform with legislative updates: PO 1130, conflict of interest; PO 3110, conflict of interest; PO 4110, conflict of interest. The changes on this are all the same, they just pertain to different populations. PO 6111, internal controls; PO 6112, cash management of grants; PO 6325, procurement federal grants / funds; PO 6550, travel payment reimbursement; PO 7310, disposition of surplus property; PO 7450, property inventory; PO 8321, criminal justice information security. Our next meeting will take place on April 9th, and we will be hosting our Neola representative, Pat Krager, for spring legislative updates. In addition, we are planning to discuss the following policies: PO 5460 on graduation, and PO 5464 early graduation. Yep, that's it.
All right. So, may I have a motion?
Madam President, I move that we delay the first reading until possibly our next meeting, because all information was not provided where we can be accurately informed. Most of us just got this yesterday. I get it, it's a first reading. However, one of the things that we've been talking about is being prepared and readiness, and I don't consider us being prepared and readiness. I mean, I read all of this, and yes, it's a first reading, but I think some of us may not have even seen it until today.
Madam President, let me look at my notes. The first reading gives us time to read. Now, to go over all of our material, it's not expected for us to make a decision right now on this. So I would recommend that Dr. Nevares Martinez, when do you expect us to do our second reading for these items? Pardon? Approval, thank you. Approval of our policies.
After the second reading.
So and when is the second reading? When are we going to plan to have our second reading?
Next meeting?
Next meeting, and that is a week from today. Is there any way we can have our second reading in April to give us some time to go over this packet?
Well, I think we should, would there be an issue with the legislative updates if we wait?
No, I think you can choose to do whatever you want, and how much time you need. Once you have
Yeah, whatever you need.
Yeah. So I would, and help me with the language, parliamentarian. So instead of not voting on the first reading, I would recommend, correct me, if, with the language, that we don't postpone this first reading, and we just schedule our second reading at a later date to give everyone time to review the policy. I think having it, our second reading next week wouldn't be beneficial for any of us.
I think the policy committee is okay with that.
Policy committee is okay with that. So with that being said, let me figure out the language.
These 4 people here.
Oh, is this
committee? This side of the,
all right.
the dais.
All the power here.
And may I add, I do believe there's another policy meeting next week, too. So,
No,
is it canceled?
Yeah.
Well, I misspoke, it's canceled.
All righty. So Trustee Williams, look at me looking at my guide. Trustee Williams, help me, trust parliamentarian. Trust with the language. Trustee.
Okay, I think there are a couple of questions. First, there was no motion yet to receive the policies for first reading, so that's hasn't been on the floor. And so a motion to set a time for a specific item would become an incidental motion as opposed to a subsidiary motion, since it hasn't been introduced. Secondly, the question was about if it needs to be at the next meeting, and the board bylaws state that it has to remain on the agenda of each succeeding meeting until approved. So it can be as many meetings as necessary, but it has to remain on the agenda per the amendment bylaw. So if there is first a motion as presented on the agenda, then that could be postponed or not. But since that motion hasn't been made yet, to entertain this motion is to set a time for this first motion.
So Trustee Williams did motion that
To
we
postpone the first reading.
to the first reading. We postponed this reading, but it didn't quite.
Right, there's no motion to postpone yet because the initial motion wasn't made. So
So does she need to remove? Does someone need to remove that?
Someone needs to make this
So there was
initial
no
motion,
second,
I think.
So what direction do we go from here?
If I may, Mr. Parliamentarian?
No, you can't. No.
Just a question to you. Would it make sense for the motion to be made by trustee to say that the Board of Education received the policy for the first reading as presented, then allow, of course, any other member to make any other preceding motion, and then that could either be adopted or not? Would that be okay?
correct.
Great.
That's what I'm saying, is that the motion to postpone would have to come after the initial motion is on the floor.
Madam President,
Okay, yes.
I move that the Board of Education receive the policies for first reading as presented.
All right. And do I have a second?
The second.
Second. So it was
Don't
moved.
say I don't have to second.
So it was moved by Trustee Navarez, and it was seconded by Trustee Rodriguez.
Dr.
Is there any discussion
Do you wanna make a
now?
motion? Yeah,
Trustee Williams? The discussion about,
postponing, yeah.
yeah.
Right, if anybody wants to make that
motion. Did you
so.
want to make the motion?
Man, I've got to try this. Okay, let me get it right. Madam President, I would like to move that we go ahead and do our reading today, but then move our second reading far enough out at the board's discretion to give us who did not receive the information in time enough time to study.
Wonderful. So, with that discussion, all in favor?
It hasn't been properly moved to second.
It has to be a second? I need
I
a
thought we didn't have to do seconds. We were just told we didn't have to do seconds.
Yeah, but we're not going to change until we talk about it.
Yep.
That part.
So it sounds like there was a motion to change the second reading, but that's not currently on the floor.
Can't do that. I just messed it up. Y'all go.
Yeah, that's okay, because we had our first and we had our second, we had our discussion, so now we're gonna go before a vote. Is there any more discussion? Not on the, okay, so may I have all in favor signify
Just clarify what you're voting
clarify
on.
that at this time, what we're gonna do is, we are gonna have our first reading, we're gonna proceed with our first reading, and we're going, as presented, and we're going to do our second reading. Nope, we're gonna leave it. Good.
Can I ask
Hello,
for a point
community.
of clarification?
We gotta, it's all good.
I have a point of clarification.
Point of clarification, yes.
First reading means that we are going to start reading. right?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's
Doesn't
right.
mean that you
We're
agree
gonna,
with it.
yes,
Yeah.
we're gonna start.
That is the point.
As
That's
presented.
yes.
As presented. We're gonna start reading as presented. Okay? All righty? We're ready? All in favor?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Motion passes.
There you go.
I heard 7.
8.
8. I heard 8. Woo!
Madam President. Madam President,
Yes.
I motion that we adopt the reading for our next board meeting in April to give us enough time to do the second reading.
Is that's,
That is,
I think it just stays on the agenda until we want to move for a second reading.
correct. That is correct.
In
So,
2 meetings, we can say now we want to pass the second reading.
no.
We don't need to add-
We don't have to do the second reading now. We just have to approve the first.
Yep.
And then this just stays on the agenda as long as we want to until we want to do the second reading.
and then we'll add it to the agenda, and you all will see it on the agenda. But we're not gonna do it next week. Does that make sense?
I recall.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Guess who's amazing? The Lansing School District Board of Education. All righty. With you got to bring some humor into it, because if not, what's going to happen? Oh my God. We're going to have great ratings. All righty. With that, let us bring us back. At this time, we've got our superintendent report.
Terrific. All right.
Wonderful.
Well, good evening, everyone. I have my usual remarks, but I do want to say that, I mean, all 4 of you in the audience, 3 of which who work for us, and one wonderful daughter of somebody on stage. There are people watching, and people do watch this, and I do want to say really clearly that what you're seeing is really wonderful. A lot of times boards are perfunctory. Boards are rubber stamps, and that's not anything these folks signed up for. And I think if anybody's been watching me for the last 3.5 years, that's not what I signed up for either. Democracy works in the open. And organizations work by being transparent, but also by willing to listen to each other. And, this stuff, let's be honest, doesn't make any sense. And so we've got to be really understanding that this is good. This is a really powerful thing to see. And so I'm just thrilled to be able to be part of that, because what I know is all of this is done with the best intent for our district and for our children. And, these policies, some of which are just word changes, but something like the AI work, this is brand new, and this is something that's really important. And so we want to make sure that the board, the duly elected board, really gets a chance to look at it and discuss it. And I also want to thank the committee work. Something that a lot of folks don't necessarily see is that groups of the board meet to do some of the hard work also to get it ready for the board. And so, I just commend the policy board, and I commend the whole board for actually really taking this quite seriously. It makes me nervous when we just go through an agenda and it's just like, yes, good, we're done, right? Because what that says is, hey, what's doing. So I don't want anybody to interpret what you're seeing here other than kind of really awesome people who care about the district. And of course, I want to thank the staff who's always there to help answer any of these questions, because that is our job. So that being said, as always, gas cards, cata cards, and Dean. Gas cards are at 2,405, and requests in 238 have been given out. Again, as a reminder, if any family needs gas cards, please ask. We're pretty quick about this now, and we know things are sometimes changing. With CATA, we're at 6:45 request and 6:38 being given, which is great. Again, if you need a CATA card, please let your schools know. And then with Dean, we're at 350 kids routed with 3,840 requests. So there is still that differential. This is something that we're really working on. But again, for those of you hearing at home, the students that have requested Dean, it's not that they don't have transportation. They're getting gas cards or they're doing other things. They're getting CATA, but we are still trying to work on doing that. And what I will say to all the families that are going to be with us next year, please, please, please make sure that when the transportation stuff opens up, that you let us know. We are trying our best to think about routes in a better way. I love that we are a school of choice, and I love that we have students that live on the north side of town that go to North, which of course, ironically, is our most southern school. But, sometimes those kinds of things will cause some of the transportation issues. So anybody listening at home, anybody watching this later, please, please, please let us know if you still have transportation issues. We're really appreciative. Our attendance rate is going up every year. Our high school graduation rate is higher. Our high school attendance rate is actually higher than it was pre-COVID. So we know the transportation options are working, but we still know that families sometimes can't get their kids to school because of the transportation issues. So still, please, please, please be in touch with us. We're there for you. I want to congratulate the Sexton boys basketball team for for an amazing run in the playoffs. I know that they're not going to Breslin this year, but it is certainly our hope to see them next year. And really, just a big support to our Sexton athletes, but really to all of our athletes, all of our coaches, all of our parents. I know how hard that is to get your kid to practice, get your kid to the teams. I understand, and our coaches have been great. Our athletics programs, and if you notice, there's starting to be some big wins. We had 2 teams in the football playoffs this year. That's been a long time coming. We have a team going to the quarters. That's a long time coming. So, look, of course, I care about English, math, history, and science. I care about graduation. I care about proficiency rates. But, a school district is more than just that. It's music, it's art, it's sports teams. And so we always want to congratulate everybody for that. Other than that, it's been a long meeting. I don't want to belabor the point, but I will say that we've made a big deal about it, but I do really want to point out that there is now a red check mark on the wall. We know that we made it to 85, which is pretty amazing. And just as a reminder, it's for 25-26 the school year, so we've got 2 more years to go for the other 2. We're getting really close to the 90%. We're hoping to hit it this year. I can't promise, but we really look like we're going to get it next year, which is the 25-26 school year. I'm always transparent, as you know. I don't know about the 11,500. That's going to be tough, but we are at least, holding steady and trying to improve. But it is certainly our hope that we'll have at least one more red check mark on the wall. And again, just to remind everybody, what we're doing in this room really matters, and that's why we have our goals, our mission statements, and I'm going to point it out, but we're going to talk about it next week, is if you see those learning boards, those bulletin boards, if you remember, we started something last year where schools would present their work. A boardroom needs to be an example of the student academic work that they are doing, and so these boards are being put up. We're going to talk about them next week, and just as a reminder, every month, 6 new schools put up their work and will present it. So next week, Jessica Benavides and her team with the schools will help present it. But I just do want to point out that now with our new space again, we have that process that we're going to do again, which is really terrific. So with that, I know we have a lot more to do. So I just want to end that and say thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. At this time, we will move on to our new business and seeing we don't have any new business,
I'm so sorry, Madam President. I actually had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For Superintendent.
Yeah, yes.
My apologies
please.
for interrupting.
No, my apologies for not even thinking.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
Can you really quickly, because I am doing my best to keep track of the numbers.
Sure.
So can you give the gas card numbers?
The gas card numbers, I gave 2,405, 2,385.
Okay. And then can you please do the CATA and the dean as well?
Yeah, I apologize if I was...
No, that's okay.
Not...
and that was my only question.
Yeah, sure. Sure. So I think I have, and again, I can just get this from transportation, 650 and 643. Is that what you have? Yeah, there's a differential of 17. That's what I've got for you. Oh, sorry, difference of 7. I apologize. A difference of 7. Yeah. And then Dean, I have 3,550. Is that what you have? Okay, yeah, of course. And then 3,800, and because I know they adjusted it, I think is 50 as well. No, my pleasure. And and if anybody's wanting these numbers, and if the board wants these numbers, I get them updated once a week from transportation. I'm happy to just email them as well. Yeah.
Are there any questions for our superintendent at this time? Yes, Trustee Hurd.
I think it's awesome, the numbers that the superintendent says to us in board meetings. Is there a way on our website that we can have like a brag section when I first go on the LSD site, say, hey, this many students we've actually helped and we got proof. These many families are benefiting from our transportation and we have proof. I would just love us to see us brag on it with the numbers.
Sure. I mean, awesome. I think that's a terrific idea. I absolutely, and our comms director is here, and I know he would love to do that. I think one of the things we also probably could do a better job is we do a lot of positive things, and we can get them more exposure. So I love that. I think that there could be a thing on the website, but also more with social media, things like that. So yeah, and look, this is, we're doing good work. The community is really doing an amazing job with this, and you're right. I would love to do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hurd. Any questions? Yes, Vice President Lopez.
Thank you. You mentioned the Sexton team, and obviously we're all proud of them. Proud of that shot, 2 weeks ago? Yeah. So, and it's good that the superintendent spoke about also the arts and other extracurricular activities. I think we ought to think about bringing some youngsters, both athletes and academic achievers, to come and be recognized. Celebrate everybody. I think, we have a young lady at Eastern, I believe, who wrestles and has won all kinds of wrestling matches, We have other kids that are doing wonderful things, but we don't see them, and it'd be nice to bring them to the board and recognize them.
With cake.
The kids?
Yeah.
With cake.
No, with cake. Oh, with cake. No. Also, our staff.
Yes.
We get reports from them, which is good. But I think that some of our staff have done wonderful things as well, and they should be recognized at the board meeting.
Yeah.
Presented with a certificate or something.
So-
Just recognize.
I love this stuff. I mean, you all know I serve at the pleasure of, there's nothing I like more than the board telling me I can have parties with people. So this is terrific. Just as a reminder, this month's ISS is about grants. Next month's ISS is about enrichment and athletics. So I will, if it's okay with the board, I will ask that Stephen Draper is going to do a part of the presentation, if he can maybe bring some of the athletes that are, and the arts and music to do that. So I think that's terrific. And then in terms of staff, just as a reminder, we've created over the last couple of years celebrations of people celebrating their 5-year, 10-year, 20-year, et cetera. So that's something that we have reinstituted, which is awesome. But I think bringing some folks when they do some like super duper stuff to the board, that'd be great too. So I know we're going to hopefully talk about that on Saturday because we'll just make some rules as to like who should be here, and that'll be best practices, promising practices, because I think there's nothing better than, again, to show off the talent that's in this district. So thank you.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Superintendent, but I love that. Best practices. Can we all say we're amazing? No, let me just pull it in. All righty. Any more questions for our superintendent at this time? Any more questions for? All righty. New business. Seeing none. Do we have any public comments on non-agenda items? No? All righty. Well, with that being said, any comments, from our board members at this time? Yes.
Yes, I have some announcements that I neglected to give during my report. Some reminders, March 14, we have a PD day, so there will be no school. March 21st, also, there is no school. And then we have spring break between March 24th to March 28th. The MLK Art Contest is open, and we have a website where folks can go. It's mlk-midmichigan.com/MLK-art-contest to apply. And then our next board meetings will be March 15. We have a special board meeting at 9:15 a.m. This is our board retreat on a Saturday. March 20th, we have our regular board meeting and informational study session. And April 3rd, a regular board meeting. And also, if you have not seen, the Mount Hope School now has the name, and if you want to ride by my hood and see it, it looks really nice. I really like it, and I have a picture of it if you want to see it.
Okay.
And yeah, the school is looking really, really great, and I'm very excited for the fall to see all our students there. So thank you.
Great work. Any more yes, I'm going to go over here to Trustee Williams, and I'm going to come back over here, and then, all righty, Trustee Williams.
Our April 3rd meeting, many of us will be traveling, going to the conference. So can we look at possibly changing that date?
Okay, yeah. I forgot that you all were traveling, because I'm not traveling. Yes, we will look at that date, and we'll let you all know. We'll get an update. Thank you for lifting that at this time. Is there any other question? Yes, Trustee Hurd. Oh, Trustee Rodriguez.
Maybe from now on, the report for the secretary should be in our packets.
Would you like? Thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
and that way we know exactly what is going on.
Wonderful. So, okay, we can add that as a best practice. Yes. Trustee Hurd.
I wanted to give a shout out to everyone at Everett High School. You might know, Madam President, that I'm their liaison. And I've had an opportunity, Mr. Superintendent, to visit the school and the principal a couple of times, even though I'm a proud J-Dub, sorry. And I was assigned to Everett. And I have to say, for all the people at Everett High School, I absolutely love you all. I visited the school, and for those of you at home, it is a sight to see sometimes the narratives that some people make up on the airwaves in real time. I saw real learning, real teachers, real students having real education moments.
got to walk through the hallways and was being grabbed by different staff members. There's great things happening in my class, come see. And so I wanted to give a shout out to Madam Principal Amy, I forget the last name, Mrs. Boyles, and all of the faculty and the students at Everett High School. Many thanks for all you are doing, and thank you for being so welcoming to an old J-Dub to come and be your liaison.
Yes, Trustee Williams.
I am so sorry. I went in the capacity as a G2. I'm not old enough to be a grandmother, so I'm just going to say that. But I want to give a shout out to the North team. We went over doing pre-kindergarten roundup, and oh my God, when I say they were making the kids feel special, they had things going on in the hallway. This was after hours. Staff was there. They were meeting the students. In my case, my G2 is autistic, and there was no ASD person on site, but the kindergarten teacher took her time with her and was just wonderful. I was like, where'd she go? They were gone and doing their own thing, wandering the building. Mrs. Kyle and her entire staff was just doing wonderful. The highlight for me, though, was they had you know how you go to the open houses and they have the backdrops so you can take pictures? Yeah. It said class of 2038, y'all. Oh my God. I was like, they were taking pictures and all of that. I was like, oh my God, Miss Kyle, you guys, your team was so wonderful, but it made me feel so old. I'm like, 2038, Jesus, is that a number? So congratulations to the North team for pre-K roundup and everything.
Yes, to North. G2, is that grammar too? No, Gigi. Oh, Gigi, okay, I didn't know. I was like, now what kind of, I got it. This is wonderful. Thank you all. Yep, we've got another comment from a board member. Trustee Boyd.
I just have a really quick question, because when you started the meeting, you said that there was an updated agenda. Can we look to receive that updated agenda?
Oh, we were going through the updated agenda.
Yes, but
the order.
Yeah, the order. So can I get that emailed to me? I usually save them. The agendas for the meeting, because the one that was
sent us doesn't look like.
No, it does not.
Yeah, Alice can send you a new.
Is that correct? Was I looking at the wrong one? That was the one that was sent. Then I was looking at the wrong one.
Okay. Okay.
I'll double check that.
Okay. And if it's not correct, just let us know.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, wonderful. Are there any? How do I know? Yes, Trustee Lopez, or Vice President.
It's okay.
How's that?
VP.
Okay. I just want to invite all of you and the community to the 16th Annual Cesar Chavez Program at Lansing City Hall, 10th floor City Hall at the Tony Benavides as the meeting room. And I want to let you know, let it out of the bag, that our own Dr. Martinez, Nevares Martinez, will be our speaker.
Good.
Wonderful.
And this is at noon from 12 to 1. And after that, we will have some food in the, as you enter the City Hall, in the lobby. So you're all invited, again, March 31st at 12 noon. And come and enjoy.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome.
Yes. Yes, and Trustee Rodriguez.
Thank you very much. It's a great celebration, and thank you, Mr. Lopez, for year after year you are having that for all for the community. I'm glad the superintendent mentioned this room, and you remember I mentioned this room last time, and how much symbolic and how much symbol is here. But I forgot to say all these chairs, they are there represent the public. Even if nobody there, the big time was full, and they were coming here now because we are on TV, maybe they are not here. But that chair represents all the public that we serve. The microphone over there, microphone also, represent the power of every individual that wants to talk. Even we cut them 3 minutes, but still it's a powerful thing. And about having people coming here, today was a great opportunity to have some of the students that were to the training to be here. And going back to this social emotional learning, we spend a lot of time talking about that. Yes. I don't want that to just be a talking and continue to do it. I would like to have that, if it's possible, we have time Saturday, and see how we can move the district in this social emotional learning, because how a student can learn math or science or English, emotionally they are not. They can. And today, because all the things going on, our students also are having the influence of what is going on in the society. Then whatever we can do, and I know that we cannot wait to, and 2 years from now, when this grant is gone, then now we are going to be thinking. I think the superintendent also supporting, we had to do something. Then it is simple. I don't think it has to be big, but it has to be something from kindergarten to, if we start next year K to 8, and we have some kind of the programs, that will be the beginning, and we can see the benefits, and there we can spend. I think that will be the best use of our money. Thank you, Madam President.
Yes.
Just one more thing.
President Lopez.
And then actually, I just want to thank you all for your support. I was informed that I was reelected to the Michigan MASB Board of Directors. And again, thanks to you, I took 60% of the vote. I don't know how many votes there were, but it was 60% as many. So thank you very much for your support.
Wonderful. All righty. So if there's no more comments from our board, our meeting we're adjourned at 8:10. Have a good evening.